Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the massive warship Stellar Dominion and looked at the star charts with satisfaction. His reptilian eyes gleamed as he studied the reports about the new species they had discovered. These creatures called themselves humans and lived on a small blue planet called Earth. The Galactic Council had been watching them for some time now, and the reports were almost laughable. The humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Their ships were crude and their weapons primitive. Most amusing of all, they seemed to think they could govern themselves without the guidance of the Council. Kethvar had seen this kind of arrogance before from newly discovered species. It never lasted long once they met the Third Fleet. Captain Veltar approached from the tactical station with a concerned expression on his scaled face. He carried a data pad with the latest intelligence reports about human technology. The captain had been studying these files for days, and something about them troubled him deeply. "Admiral, the humans have made remarkable progress in just 2 centuries," Veltar said carefully. "Their rate of technological advancement is unlike anything we have seen before. Perhaps we should approach this situation with more caution than usual." Kethvar laughed, and his deep voice echoed across the bridge. The other crew members turned to look at their commander with amusement. The idea that any primitive species could pose a threat to the mighty Galactic Council was absurd. They had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years, and no one had ever successfully resisted their invitation to join. "Captain, you worry too much about these hairless apes," Kethvar replied with dismissive wave of his clawed hand. "Look at our fleet, 12 capital ships and 50 support vessels. Each of our dreadnoughts is 3 kilometers long and armed with enough firepower to crack a planet. What could these humans possibly do against such might?" The Admiral turned back to the viewing screen, which showed the approaching human colony world of New Geneva. According to their scouts, this was one of humanity's newer settlements, with a population of only 50 million. It would serve as the perfect demonstration of council power. Once the humans saw what happened to those who refused to submit, other human worlds would quickly fall in line. Veltar was not convinced, but he knew better than to argue further with his superior. The captain had studied military history and knew that underestimating an enemy was often the first step toward defeat. However, the numbers seemed to support the Admiral's confidence. The Third Fleet had never failed in its mission and had conquered hundreds of worlds over the centuries. The bridge crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Zexrun monitored long-range sensors, while Commander Thykol coordinated with the other ships in the fleet. Everyone knew their role in the upcoming negotiations. First, they would demonstrate their overwhelming superiority, then offer the humans a choice: join the Council as a vassal species or face complete destruction. "Admiral, we are approaching the target system," announced the navigation officer. "All ships report ready for deployment. The humans should be able to detect us on their primitive sensors within the hour." Kethvar nodded and settled into his command chair. This would be another routine addition to the Council's empire. The humans would take one look at the Third Fleet and immediately understand their situation. Most species chose submission when faced with such overwhelming odds. Those few who chose to fight were quickly eliminated as examples to others. The tactical display showed the formation of Council ships as they entered the system. The fleet moved with deadly grace through space like a school of predatory fish. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering and warfare, representing thousands of years of technological development. The humans had nothing that could compare to such perfection. "Sir, we are detecting something unusual," reported Lieutenant Zexran from the sensor station. "There appears to be a single human vessel positioned between our fleet and the planet. It is holding a defensive position." Kethvar frowned and leaned forward in his chair. This was unexpected behavior from a species that should be cowering in fear. Most civilizations sent diplomatic envoys or simply surrendered when the council arrived. He had never encountered a situation where a single ship faced down an entire fleet. "Show me this vessel," the admiral commanded. The main viewing screen switched to display the human ship. It was smaller than even their lightest frigates, measuring perhaps 800 meters in length. The design was angular and aggressive, but clearly primitive compared to the smooth curves of council architecture. What struck Kethvar as most amusing was that this tiny ship had positioned itself directly in the path of 53 warships. "Are they insane?" laughed Commander Thykol from his station. "That little ship could not even damage our smallest escort vessel. What do they think they are doing?" Captain Veltar studied the readings more carefully and noticed something odd about the human ship's energy signatures. The power output seemed unusually high for a vessel of that size. There were also several systems that did not match anything in the Council database. Still, the numbers were clear. One ship against 53 was suicide regardless of any technological tricks. "Perhaps they intend to negotiate," suggested Veltar. "This could be their way of showing courage before surrendering. Many species perform symbolic gestures to preserve their honor before accepting council rule." Kethvar considered this possibility and decided it made sense. The humans were probably trying to demonstrate their bravery before the inevitable submission. It was actually quite admirable in a primitive sort of way. He would allow them to maintain some dignity before they joined the council as servants. "Open a communication channel to the human vessel," ordered the admiral. "Let us hear what these brave little creatures have to say for themselves." The communication officer worked at his console for several moments before establishing contact. The main screen flickered and then displayed the bridge of the human ship. Kethvar was surprised by what he saw. The human captain appeared completely calm and relaxed, as if facing impossible odds was a normal occurrence. There was no sign of fear or desperation in his manner. The human was a middle-aged male with short brown hair and steady blue eyes. He wore a simple uniform without the elaborate decorations that most species use to display rank and status. Everything about his appearance suggested confidence and competence rather than the panic that Kethvar had expected. "Greetings," said the human captain in a clear voice. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. You have entered human space without permission. I must ask you to turn your ships around and leave immediately." The bridge of the Stellar Dominion fell completely silent. Every crew member stared at the screen in amazement. Never in the long history of the Galactic Council had any species made demands of the Third Fleet. The sheer audacity of this human's words was beyond anything they had experienced. Kethvar recovered from his shock and felt anger building in his chest. How dare this primitive creature speak to him as an equal? The admiral's scaled hands gripped the arms of his command chair as he struggled to control his temper. This human needed to learn proper respect for his superiors. "I am Admiral Kethvar, of the Galactic Council Third Fleet," he replied in a voice that carried the authority of 10,000 years of conquest. "You will surrender your ship immediately and prepare to discuss your species' integration into the Council. Resistance is futile." Captain Morrison's expression did not change at all. He simply looked at the alien admiral with the same calm confidence he had shown from the beginning. When he spoke again, his words sent a chill through every council officer on the bridge. "You are welcome to try." Captain Jake Morrison ended the communication with the alien fleet and turned to face his bridge crew. The officers of the USS Defiance went about their duties with calm professionalism despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Morrison had served in the Earth Fleet for 20 years and had never been more proud of his people than he was at this moment. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her tactical station with a slight smile on her face. She had been running calculations since the alien fleet first appeared on their sensors. The numbers were not encouraging, but that had never stopped humanity before. Grant had grown up hearing stories about Earth's early space battles when human ships regularly faced impossible odds. Captain, the alien fleet consists of 12 capital ships and 51 support vessels, Grant reported in a steady voice. Each of their main ships appears to be approximately 3 kilometers in length. Our preliminary scans suggest they outgun us by a factor of at least 50 to 1. Morrison nodded and walked over to the tactical display. The holographic representation showed the Council fleet in perfect formation approaching their position. Each alien ship was a massive construct that dwarfed the Defiance in size and apparent firepower. Any reasonable military commander would have ordered an immediate retreat. "Recommendations, Lieutenant Commander?" Morrison asked his tactical officer. Grant studied the display for a moment before responding. She had been analyzing the alien vessels since they first appeared and had noticed several interesting details. The Council ships used technology that seemed remarkably outdated compared to human standards. Their energy signatures suggested primitive fusion drives and basic particle shields. "Sir, I recommend we show them what human engineering can accomplish," Grant said with confidence. "Our new gravitational manipulation system should give us a significant advantage in maneuverability. Their weapons appear to be conventional energy beams and kinetic projectiles, nothing our dimensional shields cannot handle." Commander Ben Parker looked up from the engineering station, where he had been monitoring their ship's systems. The chief engineer was a compact man with graying hair who had worked on the Defiance's advanced propulsion systems since before the ship was commissioned. Parker knew every circuit and power coupling on the vessel better than anyone else in the fleet. "Captain, all systems are operating within normal parameters," Parker reported. "The gravitational drive is ready for combat maneuvers, and our Nova cannon is fully charged. I have to say, sir, these aliens picked the wrong ship to threaten. The Defiance represents the finest technology humanity has ever produced." Dr. Amy Foster turned from her science station with a puzzled expression on her face. The ship's science officer had been analyzing the energy signatures from the alien fleet, and the results were surprising. Foster was a brilliant physicist who had helped develop many of the theoretical foundations for their advanced technology. "Captain, there is something odd about these Council ships," Foster said thoughtfully. "Their technology appears to be several centuries behind our current capabilities. I am detecting crude fusion reactors, basic particle shields, and weapons that barely register on our threat assessment scales. It is almost as if they have made no significant technological progress for thousands of years." Morrison considered this information while studying the tactical display. Earth's rapid technological advancement had always been a source of pride for humanity. In just 2 centuries, they had progressed from chemical rockets to ships that could manipulate gravity itself. The idea that an ancient civilization could be less advanced than humanity was intriguing. "Perhaps they have become complacent," Morrison suggested. "When you rule through fear and overwhelming force, there is little incentive to innovate. Humanity has always advanced through competition and necessity." The communication panel chimed, and Morrison returned to his command chair. Admiral Kethvar appeared on the main screen again, and his reptilian features showed clear signs of anger. The alien commander had obviously expected immediate surrender rather than defiance from the human ship. "Captain Morrison, you have made a grave error in judgment," the alien admiral said in a threatening tone. The Galactic Council has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. No species has ever successfully resisted our authority. Your single ship cannot hope to stand against the might of the Third Fleet." Morrison remained calm and relaxed in his chair. He had faced dangerous situations before and knew that showing fear would only encourage the enemy. The captain glanced around his bridge at the determined faces of his crew. These men and women represented the best that humanity had to offer. "Admiral Kethvar, I appreciate your concern for our welfare," Morrison replied with polite formality. "However, humanity has never accepted the rule of others regardless of the odds. We prefer to make our own decisions about our future." The alien admiral's eyes widened in disbelief. No species had ever spoken to the council with such casual dismissal of their authority. Kethvar had conquered hundreds of worlds, and every victory had followed the same pattern. Overwhelming display of force followed by immediate surrender. This human's attitude was completely outside his experience. "You leave me no choice, Captain," Kethvar said with finality. "I hereby order the Third Fleet to advance and destroy your vessel. Perhaps your sacrifice will convince other human worlds to be more reasonable." The communication ended and Morrison turned to his crew. The moment of truth had arrived, and everything humanity had worked toward would be tested in the next few minutes. The captain had complete confidence in his ship and crew, but he also understood the magnitude of what they faced. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "Battle stations, we are about to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. Make Earth proud." Lieutenant Commander Grant activated the ship's combat systems, and the bridge lighting shifted to a red alert status. Defensive shields came online with a low humming sound that vibrated through the hull. The gravitational drive began cycling up to full power as the ship prepared for combat maneuvers that would have been impossible with conventional technology. Commander Parker monitored the engineering displays as power flowed to all systems. The Defiance had been designed specifically to demonstrate humanity's technological capabilities. Every system on the ship represented years of research and development by Earth's finest minds. Parker was eager to see how their innovations would perform against an actual enemy. Dr. Foster continued scanning the approaching alien fleet and gathering data about their capabilities. The science officer wanted to understand exactly what humanity was facing. Her analysis confirmed that the Council ships were using remarkably primitive technology despite their impressive size. "Captain, the alien fleet is beginning their attack approach," Grant reported from Tactical. "They are maintaining formation and advancing at a steady pace. Time to weapons range approximately 3 minutes." Morrison stood and walked to the center of the bridge. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity remained free or became another subjugated species in the Council's empire. The captain had no intention of allowing the latter outcome. "Lieutenant Commander Grant prepared to demonstrate human ingenuity," Morrison ordered. "Show them maneuvers they never thought possible. Commander Parker, give us everything the gravitational drive can handle. Dr. Foster, I want continuous analysis of their weapons and defenses." The crew responded with crisp acknowledgments as they prepared for battle. Each officer knew their role and trusted in their training and technology. The Defiance had been built for this exact situation where humanity needed to prove itself against overwhelming odds. The alien fleet continued its advance with confident precision. Admiral Kethvar had no doubt about the outcome of this engagement. One primitive ship against the might of the Third Fleet was not a battle, but an execution. The Admiral was already planning his report to the Council about humanity's destruction. The battle began when Admiral Kethvar gave the order for his fleet to advance. 12 massive dreadnoughts and 51 support vessels moved forward in perfect formation, like a wall of death approaching the single human ship. Every council officer expected this to be the shortest engagement in their military history. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as the alien fleet closed the distance. When the enemy ships reached optimal firing range, he gave a simple command that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. "Execute combat maneuvers," Morrison ordered. The USS Defiance suddenly accelerated at a rate that should have been impossible. The ship shot forward at over 200 times the force of gravity without any sign of structural stress or crew discomfort. The council officers watching on their sensors could not believe what they were seeing. No known technology could allow organic beings to survive such acceleration. Commander Ben Parker monitored the gravitational manipulation systems from his engineering station. The drives were performing exactly as designed, and the artificial gravity field protected the crew from the incredible forces involved. Parker had helped develop this technology and still marveled at what human science had accomplished. "Gravitational drive operating within normal parameters, Captain," Parker reported calmly. "All systems stable and ready for extended combat operations." The Defiance moved through space with impossible grace as it began evasive maneuvers. The ship seemed to dance between dimensions as it twisted and turned in ways that violated everything the Council knew about physics. Gravity itself appeared to bend to humanity's will as the vessel performed maneuvers that should have torn it apart. On the bridge of the Stellar Dominion, Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in complete shock. His sensors showed the human ship moving in patterns that made no sense according to known laws of physics. The vessel was accelerating in multiple directions simultaneously and changing course without regard for momentum or inertia. "How is this possible?" demanded Captain Veltar as he studied the readings. "No ship can maneuver like that. The crew should be dead from the gravitational forces alone." Lieutenant Zexron frantically checked his sensor calibrations, convinced that the equipment must be malfunctioning. The readings showed the human ship performing maneuvers that were simply impossible. The vessel was moving as if the normal rules of space combat did not apply to it. "Sir, all sensors confirm the readings," Zexron reported with confusion in his voice. "The human ship is somehow immune to the effects of acceleration and can change direction instantaneously. I have never seen anything like this before. Admiral..." Kethvar felt the first stirrings of doubt in his mind. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years based on their technological superiority. If this primitive species possessed capabilities that surpassed Council science, then everything he believed about the natural order was wrong. "All ships open fire," Kethvar commanded. "Concentrate all weapons on that vessel. I want it destroyed immediately." The Third Fleet unleashed everything in its arsenal at the dancing human ship. Thousands of energy beams streaked through space, along with massive missile salvos and plasma cannon rounds. The concentrated firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. But the Defiance continued its impossible dance between the incoming attacks. Dr. Amy Foster analyzed the alien weapons as they fired and confirmed her earlier assessment of their primitive technology. The Council ships were using energy systems that humanity had abandoned decades ago in favor of more advanced alternatives. Their weapons were powerful, but crude and predictable. "Captain, the alien weapons are based on standard particle beam technology," Foster reported. "Their targeting systems appear to be designed for conventional space combat. They cannot track our gravitational maneuvers effectively." Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant watched the tactical display as thousands of alien weapons converged on their position. The Defiance moved through the deadly light show like a dancer performing a complex routine. Every shot missed as the ship bent space around itself to avoid the incoming fire. "All enemy weapons ineffective, Captain," Grant announced. "Our gravitational fields are deflecting their targeting solutions. They cannot hit what they cannot properly track." The alien fleet continued firing for several minutes as the Defiance performed its impossible dance. Energy beams and missile trails filled the space around the human ship, but none found their target. The Council weapons seemed to pass through empty space where their sensors said the enemy vessel should be. Commander Parker monitored the ship's defensive systems as they absorbed and redirected the ambient energy from near misses. The dimensional shields were working perfectly and actually growing stronger as they fed on the alien weapons fire. Humanity had learned to turn the enemy's strength against them. "Captain, our shields are actually gaining power from their attacks," Parker reported with satisfaction. "The dimensional matrix is absorbing their energy discharges and converting them to useful power. We could maintain this defensive pattern indefinitely." Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as his entire fleet failed to damage a single enemy ship. The Third Fleet had never encountered anything like this before. Every weapon system that had conquered hundreds of worlds was useless against the human vessel's impossible maneuvers. "Cease fire," Kethvar ordered in a voice filled with disbelief. "All ships cease fire immediately." The space around the USS Defiance gradually cleared as the Council weapons fell silent. The human ship continued its graceful movements, but no longer needed to evade incoming fire. An eerie quiet settled over the battlefield as both sides processed what had just occurred. Captain Morrison stood in the center of his bridge and surveyed the tactical situation. The alien fleet had expended enormous amounts of energy and ammunition without achieving any results. Now, it was time for humanity to demonstrate what their technology could accomplish when used offensively rather than defensively. "Lieutenant Commander Grant, prepare to return fire," Morrison commanded. "But only a warning shot. We want to make a point, not start a war." Grant's fingers moved across her tactical controls as she activated the ship's primary weapon system. The PAS Nova cannon had been designed specifically to demonstrate humanity's commitment to defending themselves. It represented the pinnacle of human weapons technology and had never been tested against an actual enemy. "Nova cannon charging, Captain," Grant reported. "Target acquisition locked on the largest enemy vessel, ready to fire on your command." Morrison considered the situation carefully before giving his next order. This single shot would determine whether the galaxy saw humanity as a species to be respected or feared. He preferred respect, but was prepared to accept fear if necessary. Dr. Foster completed her analysis of the alien fleet's defensive capabilities and found them lacking compared to human standards. The Council ships used basic energy shields that would provide minimal protection against advanced human weapons. Their defensive systems were designed to counter technology similar to their own. Captain, the alien shields appear to be standard. "Particle barriers," Foster reported. "They should provide little resistance to our dimensional weaponry. A single shot from the Nova cannon will penetrate their defenses easily." Admiral Kethvar opened a communication channel to the human ship, desperate to understand what was happening. His entire worldview had been shattered in the space of a few minutes. The Council's technological superiority was supposed to be absolute and unquestionable. "Captain Morrison, how is your ship capable of such maneuvers?" Kethvar asked with genuine curiosity. "Our scientists have studied space combat for thousands of years. What you are doing should be impossible. Morrison appeared on the Council flagship's main screen with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the engagement. The human captain showed no signs of stress or excitement, despite having just survived an attack by an entire fleet. "Admiral, humanity has always believed that impossible is just another word for a problem that hasn't been solved yet," Morrison replied. "We tend to find solutions to problems that others consider permanent limitations." The communication ended, and Morrison turned back to his weapons officer. The time for demonstrations had arrived, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity decided to stop being defensive. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the center of his bridge and made a decision that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. The USS Defiance had demonstrated its defensive capabilities beyond any doubt. Now it was time to show what human weapons technology could accomplish. "Lieutenant Commander Grant, fire the Nova Cannon," Morrison ordered with quiet authority. "One shot. Make it count." Lisa Grant's hands moved across her tactical controls with practiced precision. The Nova Cannon had been installed on the Defiance, specifically for situations like this where humanity needed to make an unmistakable statement about their capabilities. The weapon represented decades of research into dimensional energy manipulation. "Nova Cannon firing," Grant announced. A brilliant beam of pure energy erupted from the USS Defiance and streaked across space toward the Council fleet. The weapon moved faster than light itself as it tore through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Every sensor in both fleets registered energy readings that exceeded their measurement capabilities. The beam struck the Council flagship Eternal Glory with surgical precision. Admiral Kethvar had exactly 1 second to realize what was happening before his massive dreadnought simply ceased to exist. The 3-kilometer warship did not explode or break apart. It was completely disintegrated at the molecular level, leaving nothing but empty space where it had been. The bridge of the Stellar Dominion fell into absolute silence as every crew member stared at the tactical display. Where moments before their most powerful warship had dominated the center of their formation, there was now nothing. Not even debris remained to mark the passage of the mighty vessel. Captain Veltar checked and rechecked his sensors, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Eternal Glory had been the pride of the Council fleet, armed with enough weapons to destroy entire worlds. Now it was gone, as if it had never existed at all. "Admiral, the Eternal Glory has been completely destroyed," Veltar reported in a voice barely above a whisper. "There are no survivors. There is no wreckage. The ship has been totally eliminated." Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Fear. Pure, undiluted terror at facing an enemy whose capabilities were so far beyond his understanding that they might as well be magical. The Council had ruled through overwhelming force for 10,000 years. Now they faced a species that could eliminate their most powerful ships with a single shot. How much energy was in that beam? Kethvar demanded of his science officer. Lieutenant Commander Thyron worked frantically at his station, trying to calculate the power output of the human weapon. The readings were so far beyond normal parameters that his instruments could barely register them. When he finally arrived at an estimate, the number was incomprehensible. "Sir, the energy output exceeded our measurement capabilities by several orders of magnitude," Thyron reported with shock. "The weapon appears to have channeled the equivalent of a small star's energy output into a focused beam. I do not understand how any ship could generate or control such power." On the bridge of the USS Defiance, the crew monitored the effects of their warning shot with professional interest. The Nova Cannon had performed exactly as designed, completely eliminating the target without affecting surrounding vessels. Dr. Amy Foster noted the precision of the weapon with scientific appreciation. Captain, the Nova cannon functioned within normal parameters, Dr. Foster reported. The dimensional energy beam achieved complete molecular disruption of the target vessel. No radiation or debris was created in the process, a very clean elimination. Commander Ben Parker checked the ship's power systems and noted that firing the Nova cannon had barely affected their energy reserves. The gravitational manipulation drives provided virtually unlimited power by tapping into the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Humanity had learned to harness the same energies that held galaxies together. Captain, all systems remain at full capacity, Parker announced. We could fire the Nova cannon continuously for hours without depleting our reserves. The gravitational drives are maintaining peak efficiency. Captain Morrison opened a communication channel to the remaining Council ships. The alien fleet had stopped their advance and appeared to be in complete disarray. Morrison hoped that his demonstration had made the appropriate impression without necessitating further violence. Admiral Kethvar appeared on the main screen looking shaken and confused. The proud reptilian commander who had entered human space with such confidence now seemed like a different person entirely. His eyes darted around as if expecting another impossible attack at any moment. Admiral, I trust that adequately demonstrated our defensive capabilities, Morrison said in the same calm tone he had maintained throughout the encounter. Would you like to reconsider your position regarding human space? Kethvar struggled to find words that could express his current situation. Everything he had believed about Council superiority had been shattered in the space of a few minutes. A single human ship had proven itself superior to an entire fleet of their most advanced warships. Captain Morrison, how did your species develop such advanced technology? Kethvar asked with genuine bewilderment. Our intelligence reports indicated that humanity had only achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago. How is it possible for you to surpass civilizations that have existed for thousands of years? Morrison considered the question carefully before responding. The answer touched on fundamental differences between human and Council approaches to progress and innovation. Humanity had always embraced change and competition, while the Council seemed to have stagnated in their comfortable dominance. Admiral, humanity advances because we never accept that anything is impossible, Morrison explained. Every limitation is seen as a challenge to overcome rather than a permanent barrier. We compete with ourselves constantly and never become satisfied with our current achievements. The communication paused as Kethvar processed this information. The Council had maintained their empire through fear and overwhelming force for so long that they had forgotten the value of innovation. Their subjects were kept deliberately primitive to prevent challenges to Council authority. Captain Morrison, I am prepared to offer humanity a position within the Galactic Council, Kethvar said with desperate formality. Your species would be granted junior membership status with full access to Council trade networks and protection. Morrison's response surprised the alien admiral even more than his ship's impossible capabilities had. The human captain actually laughed at the offer that countless species would have considered the greatest honor imaginable. Admiral, humanity appreciates your generous offer, but we must respectfully decline, Morrison replied with polite firmness. We have no interest in joining any organization that rules through intimidation and conquest. We prefer to make our own decisions about our future. The bridge of the stellar dominion erupted in shocked murmurs as the crew processed what they had just heard. No species had ever declined membership in the Galactic Council. The offer of junior status was considered a tremendous privilege that most civilizations would fight wars to obtain. Captain Morrison's next word sent a chill through every council officer listening to the transmission. The human captain's tone remained polite but carried an unmistakable threat that made the destruction of the eternal glory seem like a gentle warning. "Admiral, you have 10 minutes to remove your fleet from human space," Morrison announced with quiet authority. "Any council vessels remaining in this system after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. I suggest you use the time wisely." The communication ended, leaving Admiral Kethvar staring at a blank screen. For the first time in council history, their fleet had been given an ultimatum by a species they had intended to conquer. The Admiral knew that he had no choice but to comply with the humans' demands. "All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal," Kethvar ordered with resignation. "Set course for Council Space maximum speed." As the Third Fleet began its humiliating retreat, Captain Morrison turned to his crew with satisfaction. They had accomplished something that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Humanity had served notice that Earth would never bow to any form of tyranny. "Well done, everyone," Morrison said to his bridge crew. "Contact Earth Fleet Command and inform them that first contact has been successfully concluded. I believe we have made our position quite clear." The USS Defiance maintained its position as the Council fleet withdrew from human space. The single ship had accomplished what entire civilizations had failed to do for 10,000 years. They had faced the might of the Galactic Council and emerged victorious. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the stellar dominion as his fleet retreated from human space in complete defeat. The proud council commander who had entered the system with such confidence now faced the most humiliating moment of his career. For 10,000 years, the Third Fleet had been invincible. Now they fled from a single enemy ship like frightened children. Captain Veltar approached his superior with obvious concern. The retreat had shaken every member of the crew, and questions were being whispered throughout the fleet. How could the mighty Galactic Council be defeated by a species they had considered primitive just hours before? "Admiral, what do we tell the Council about this encounter?" Veltar asked carefully. "They will demand a full explanation for our failure to bring humanity into the Empire." Kethvar considered the question with growing dread. The Council expected results, not excuses, from their military commanders. Admitting that a single human ship had destroyed their flagship and forced the entire fleet to retreat would likely end his career and possibly his life. "We tell them the truth, Captain," Kethvar replied with weary resignation. "Humanity possesses technology that surpasses our own by centuries, if not millennia. Any attempt to conquer them would result in the complete destruction of our forces. The implications of this defeat would echo throughout Council space for generations to come. Every subjugated species would hear about the humans who faced down the Third Fleet and won. For the first time in 10,000 years, the oppressed worlds of the galaxy would have hope that their situation might change." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to Earth Fleet Command. Admiral Susan Hayes appeared on the main screen from her office in the Orbital Defense Station above Earth. The fleet commander had been monitoring the situation and waiting for news about humanity's first official contact with alien civilization. "Captain, Morrison, report," Admiral Hayes commanded with professional efficiency. Morrison straightened in his chair and delivered his report with the same calm confidence he had shown throughout the encounter. The captain took no pleasure in the violence that had been necessary, but felt satisfaction at the successful defense of human space. "Admiral, first contact with the Galactic Council has been concluded successfully," Morrison announced. "Their fleet attempted to force humanity into a vassal relationship. We demonstrated our defensive capabilities, and they have withdrawn from our territory. No further hostile action appears likely at this time." Admiral Hayes smiled with obvious pride at her subordinate's accomplishment. She had chosen Morrison specifically for this mission because of his combination of tactical skill and diplomatic judgment. The captain had handled an impossible situation with exactly the right balance of strength and restraint. "Outstanding work, Captain," Hayes replied with satisfaction. "Your actions have ensured that humanity will be respected rather than conquered by our new galactic neighbors. However, this is only the beginning of our challenges. Intelligence suggests there are hundreds of species under Council rule, and most were likely forced into submission, just as they attempted with us." Dr. Amy Foster continued her analysis of the Council fleet's technology and made disturbing discoveries about the nature of their empire. The science officer had been studying the energy signatures and design patterns of the alien ships during the entire encounter. "Captain, my analysis confirms that Council technology has remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years," Foster reported with concern. "This suggests a deliberate policy of preventing innovation throughout their empire. They maintain control by keeping their subjects technologically dependent." Morrison nodded thoughtfully as he considered the implications of this information. Humanity's rapid technological advancement was the result of constant competition and innovation. A civilization that suppressed such progress would inevitably stagnate and become vulnerable to more dynamic societies. "It appears that the Council's greatest strength has become their greatest weakness," Morrison observed. "They ruled through technological superiority for so long that they forgot the importance of continued advancement." Lieutenant Commander Lisa, Grant reviewed the tactical data from the engagement and noticed something significant about the Council fleet's behavior. The alien ships had fought with tactics that were obviously outdated and inflexible. They seemed incapable of adapting to unexpected situations. "Captain, the Council forces showed no ability to modify their approach when faced with our unconventional capabilities," Grant noted. "Their entire military doctrine appears to be based on overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. They have become predictable through success." Commander Ben Parker completed his engineering analysis and confirmed that the Defiance had performed flawlessly throughout the encounter. Every system had functioned exactly as designed, and the ship remained ready for extended operations if necessary. "Captain, all systems continue to operate within normal parameters," Parker announced. "We could engage multiple fleets of similar size without difficulty. The gravitational drives and dimensional shields give us advantages that conventional technology simply cannot counter." Back on Earth, President Danny Walsh prepared to address the Global Assembly about humanity's first contact with alien civilization. The president had been briefed on the encounter and understood the significance of what had occurred. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe and had made it clear that Earth would not be conquered by anyone. The assembly hall fell silent as President Walsh approached the podium. Representatives from every nation on Earth waited to hear about this historic moment. The president looked out at the gathered delegates and began to speak with quiet authority. "Fellow citizens of Earth, I am here to inform you that humanity is no longer alone in the universe," Walsh announced. "We have made contact with an interstellar civilization known as the Galactic Council. They attempted to force us into submission and have learned that humanity will never accept the rule of others." The assembly erupted in excited discussions as the implications of this news sank in. Earth had always been united in its determination to remain free, but now that principle had been tested against alien conquest and proven successful. The USS Defiance, under the command of Captain Morrison, has demonstrated that human technology and determination are more than capable of defending our freedom, Walsh continued. We have served notice to the galaxy that Earth stands ready to protect not only ourselves, but any who seek liberation from tyranny. Throughout Council space, word of the Third Fleet's defeat spread like wildfire among the subjugated species. Whispered conversations in slave quarters and secret meetings in hidden locations carried the news that someone had finally stood up to the mighty council and won. On the mining world of Kepler 7, the reptilian Draknari workers heard about the humans who destroyed a council dreadnought with a single shot. The enslaved population had dreamed of freedom for generations, but never believed it was possible until now. The aquatic meridians of the water world Oceanus gathered in their underwater cities to discuss the implications of humanity's victory. For centuries they had served as the Council's primary shipbuilders, but now they dared to hope that their expertise might be used for their own benefit. Even the insectoid hive queens of the Zebulon system felt a stirring of long-suppressed independence as news of the human victory reached their carefully monitored worlds. The collective consciousness that had been forced to serve Council interests began to consider other possibilities. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the USS Defiance, looking out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had always known that they were part of something larger, but now they understood their role in that greater story. Earth was no longer just another world, but a beacon of hope for the oppressed throughout the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Grant joined her captain at the viewing port and gazed out at the infinite expanse of space. The tactical officer understood that their victory over the Council fleet was just the first step in a much larger journey. "Captain, what happens next?" Grant asked with curiosity. Morrison considered the question carefully before responding. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves, but now they faced the greater challenge of determining how to use their capabilities. The galaxy was full of species that had been waiting for someone to challenge the established order. Now we find out which species in this galaxy want to be free, Lisa, Morrison replied with quiet determination. And then we help them remember what that means. The stars seemed to shine brighter as humanity prepared to take its place among the civilizations of the galaxy. Earth had announced its presence with strength and conviction. Now the real work of building a better future for all sentient beings could begin. The age of the Galactic Council's unchallenged dominance was over. A new era of freedom and possibility had begun, and it would be led by the species that refused to accept limitations. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same.